Hi there, I'm Sara Burns, and I've just been having some spirits messing with my video. And so hopefully this time I can make this video over springtime and the liver energy and um, give you some insights. I made a lot of notes on the liver, and I decided I'm not going to go by my notes, but the reason I made so many notes about it is that to me, the liver energy is one of the most important energies to address when it comes to mood disorders, stress, anger, you name it. I feel like, yes, every organ has a relevance to it, but the liver energy is the most aggressive energy in our body. And it correlates with the season of spring. And as I've mentioned, if you haven't seen my other videos on fall and winter, I talked about in winter how important it is just to go within. You can make your plans for the year, but spring is the time to spring forward, just like with the time change, um, and put those plans into actions. The problem I see a lot of times this time of year, and I'm starting to see it in my practice, is that people who cannot slow down, who don't give themselves permission just to be, to make plans, they do show up in here with enormous stress, which also is anxiety, right? Um, and depressive type symptoms. But another thing that shows up for me, which in the past week I've had quite a few calls over this, is um, men with erectile dysfunction. And um, it is correlated with the liver energy because the meridians um, go through that area, and the liver energy does promote procreation, which we do in springtime. And so, if you're someone who has struggled with this, I want to have a conversation about this actually, as I'm just talking off the top of my head. I, years ago, began putting a program together for men with ED. And I started it by just doing like an experimental group of men. I believe there were 5 men that signed up for it. And um, they had amazing results. Some people still had issues afterwards and came to me privately to work on it some more. And I do think you can't do a one-day workshop on this because there's a lot to it. But I'm going to just tell you a few things that I do know about it. And one of those things, once again, is your diet. When I put the workshop on years ago, um, they had just come out with this idea that nitric oxide was really relevant in opening the veins and arteries and blood vessels. It expanded them. And so there were a lot of products out there that promoted that, and they're probably still out on the market today. One of the bigger, safest ones that they were using was L-citrulline, which actually is a byproduct of watermelon rinds. So cooking watermelon rinds and making tea out of it, that could possibly help expand the veins and blood vessels, that kind of thing. But nitric oxide also comes from red meat. And I know that I get quite a few people that come to me, and it's my biggest challenge is talking to people about diet and nutrition, because there has been so much propaganda out in the world um, regarding food. Eat your greens. You know what's funny is a lot of people come in here, and what they will say when I start asking them about their diet, they say, I probably need to eat more vegetables. And I think that's something that all of us need to think about, that if we're having to push ourselves to eating more vegetables, then maybe our body's telling us we don't need all those vegetables. Most of the vegetables that get eaten don't stay in our body, they don't break down in our body. And I'm certainly not here saying don't eat vegetables, but there is this thing about negating meat in your diet. Meat is bad for you. Well, the thing about meat is that it actually digests in the small intestines, where most of our digestion should take place, not in the large intestine. The large intestines are to remove the water and kind of recycle the water back in our body. That's what the large intestines is primarily for. It's the small intestines that absorb our nutrients. That's primary. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's talk about the liver for a minute and how that could be even more important. So the liver, they have found in metabolic health that issues such as heart disease and diabetes is starts with glycogenesis in the liver area. That means its ability of creating a sugar type substance that then the pancreas needs to kick in and manage the sugars with insulin. And when there's too much sugars getting produced, then the insulins become insensitive to doing anything about it. It's like, oh, okay. It kind of reminds me of one of my dogs who loves to bark. And after a while, with the barking, I can yell at him and tell him to stop, stop, stop. And he doesn't. So you get to a point where you're like, never mind. Okay. And it's the same with your liver, trying to manage producing too much sugar, and the insulin trying to manage that overabundance of sugar. And many people don't equate sugar to our vegetables as well. I've been reading, I think I read something this morning about Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos wanting to make a push in creating fake meat. And so this is disturbing to me, because we already have a lot of fake food. And fake meat is going to be another product that is going to be really challenging for the liver to break down. We are a society over-medicated. We eat way too much sugar, but we also eat a lot of chemically based foods that are processed. And all of those foods overtax the liver so that it cannot function properly. I believe I read a statistic recently that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is one of the initial stages to reaching cirrhosis, is 50% of the population at least. And usually the way you can tell if you are struggling with that is that your waist is a little bit thicker than it used to be. I believe the for women, it's 35 inches or more is a sign that most likely you're developing metabolic syndrome. And so, what is this metabolic syndrome? A lot of people are talking about it. Well, again, it does start in the liver, and they have found that it eventually leads to prediabetes, then diabetes and heart disease, and then ultimately dementia. And dementia is now being referred to as diabetes 3. So there's roots to all of this. I just want to share in my own personal life. Years ago, I acquired Hep C from a blood transfusion from a surgery, and I had that for about 20 years. About 20 years ago, I fortunately had a treatable genotype that it only took me 6 months of treatments to overcome that. But after the treatment, I was still thoroughly exhausted for years. And my energy level is not that great now, but my exhaustion was incredibly debilitating. And what I discovered after that is that I had fatty liver disease. And I remember when I was told this, I had to go to another doctor for something and shared I had it. And the medical assistant laughed, and she thought that was funny. And I, as a patient, I was highly offended, but nobody really told me what fatty liver disease was. Nobody told me the symptoms of it or what I need to be aware of about it. Nobody tells you these things. But a few years back, I developed also H. pylori and had bleeding stomach ulcers. And that's another story, but I don't want to put that in with the story. But I will say that getting that diagnosis really prompted me into doing a lot of research on healing my gut. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I watched one functional med doctor after another on YouTube, read multiple books on it. I was even planning to take a functional med course. But in the meantime of watching all of these doctors, all of them end up recommending herbs and supplements. And I was still sick as a dog with a whole counter full of meds, eating my greens, and get still as sick as I was before I started doing any of the functional med stuff. I listened to carnivore, and I have to admit, I have never made it to that 100% mark of being a carnivore because I like chocolate and I have to have it. But what I did do was manage to limit that to 20 grams a day. That was my carbs. And I went ahead, and the rest of my diet was carnivore. I ate bacon in the morning. Lunch meat, I eventually added dairy to it, and steak at night. And that's pretty much still my same diet. And I was concerned. I really didn't know if this was really beneficial for me or not, because you hear the vegan, vegetarian people telling you how dangerous all of this is. And so I decided to get a checkup and went to my doctor and asked if they would do an ultrasound on my liver to see what stage of the fatty liver disease I was in. And come to find out, the results, which I thought were kind of funny, because the reading of the film was unremarkable liver. That's the medical world for you. Unremarkable. It was amazingly remarkable to me, because I had been struggling with fatty liver disease even after I got healed from Hep C. It was remarkable. It's incredible. And the terminology in the medical field, we do need to pay attention to that, because what it's saying is the only things that really matter is bad health. Not good health, but bad health. Okay, so that's my tangent. And I did that by eating meat. I do from time to time eat vegetables, but I don't beat myself up thinking I have to eat more vegetables. I don't do that, and I feel like, I'm doing pretty good. My LDL got higher right along with my HDL. And there's controversy about LDL, and so I'm not incredibly worried about that right now. But I think overall, my health has been remarkable since changing my diet. Okay, let me get back to spring, and I probably will do another video dedicated simply to spring, but I want to talk about the liver some more. The liver, in five-element theory and Chinese medicine, it is where the emotion of anger and frustration is stored. And if you think about it on an emotional level, the most powerful emotion that we as human beings have is anger. It's the most, we need it. And a lot of people feel guilty when their anger comes up. But the reason anger comes up for people is because on some level, whether it's conscious or unconscious, there is a sense of feeling a threat of loss or actual loss. And anger is the way to push that away, to protect ourselves. And the problem is with anger is that if we don't do anything with it constructively, it can lead to deeper things. Just like, as I was saying, fatty liver can progress into cirrhosis. Well, anger can also progress into deeper depressions. The thing I notice with a lot of people who come to me with depression is that they don't take that anger energy and do anything constructive with it. They repeat the same circles. And let me give you a few examples. I'm not going to share names, of course, but I have one guy, very creative person, by the way, very creative. But he came out to California from the Midwest. And as much as we all wish our families would be wonderful and greet us with open arms and just 100% acceptance, that just isn't reality. And he goes back a few times a year, and he always comes back disappointed. And then he starts the circle of feeling like he's worthless, he's no good, nobody cares about him. And some of that, I think, is not at the level that he perceives it at. But when you don't process it and you don't do something with it. If you don't address it in communication, or if you keep going back and doing the same thing and you get the same results, then that's going to be a driving force of continuing to build a depression. I also see it with people that are people pleasers, because so that goes a little bit deeper. Yes, it's a liver issue. It's also an anxiety, kidney issue. But the problem with people pleasing is it became a way for a lot of people who, especially people that grew up with a lot of rage in their households, to be kind, to be agreeable, to comply. And that compliance ends up manifesting as health issues, cancers, depression, anxiety. And so people pleasing is a way of not addressing the issues, yet keeping yourself safe. So these are just a few things that come up with the liver energy. Primarily, in my mind, the depression can be found with the liver energy. And I do find the word for depression from an energetic perspective to be a little erroneous. From my perspective, when I'm working on people and feeling the energy, what I'm feeling is compression, not depression, but compression, meaning there's a lot of energy just stagnated and stored in the liver, and it cannot go back down and become integrated into the body very well. So that energy makes us constricted human beings. And again, as I was just saying about the behaviors and emotions of depression, it's not allowing that energy to get processed into doing something constructive, because that's the other part of anger that we want to negate. It's uncomfortable when we get angry. It's uncomfortable. But as I just said a little bit ago, that energy is the most powerful energy in our body. So what is that energy, liver energy, trying to get us to do? It's trying to get us to feel uncomfortable enough that we do something different to make a change in our lives. That's why seasonally, this is the time of year to begin implementing new plans over old plans from the year before that just did not work for us. As I said, in fall, we start seeing what isn't working for us, and those things get discarded. But we need to take a step back and make plans about how we're going to move forward with it. But if you don't take that time to shut down and regroup, and you're trying and trying and trying, then all you're doing is building up that energy of frustration and anger. And most likely you're internalizing it, causing your liver energy to compress, which leads to depression. So I've gone much further on this than I had intended to do. Let me just tell you a few other physical things you might feel with this liver energy if it's disharmonious. You may actually end up having restlessness and anxiety and insomnia at night. You may feel like your energy is wiry. That's another thing. You may feel extremely exhausted because your liver energy is being compromised and it cannot process all the medications and chemicals you're putting in your body. Um, so those are some things. The other thing is that in Chinese medicine, the liver rules your ligaments and tendons. So if you have issues around your joints, that may also be contributed to your liver energy. I know I'm not touching base on everything. The liver, you can write an entire book on it. It's the most important energy in our body. And it all begins with what you're putting through your liver, because to me, as they say that the gut is the second brain, to me, it's actually the first brain. What you put in your liver is ultimately going to affect your mood and how your brain actually functions. So it's okay to eat meat. It's okay if you're not a huge vegetable eater. Don't beat yourself up over that. Your body's telling you you don't need vegetables, most likely. But you do need to take time to examine what you're chemically putting into your body to take care of your liver. That's primary. And the second thing that you need to do this time of year is anything that's causing you stress, instead of repeating the patterns of how it's harming you, hurting you, you can't get out of it. It's time for you to start looking at your situations and seeing how you're repeating a pattern so that you can begin unrepeating a pattern and move forward in your life. I hope this was helpful. I know it felt like I was rambling at points, but there's just a lot to say about the liver. And I am seeing it. It's this time of year. It's connected, by the way, one other thing. I should have said this right off the bat. It's connected, they call it in Chinese medicine the wood element, but the reason it's related to wood is not because of wood. It's actually related to air. But the thing about wood, and here's where the thinking about ligaments again as well, it's the condition of when wind is flowing, how wood is able to go with the wind, to bend with the wind, to move with the wind. If you've got bad liver energy or the wood element, you're not going to be bending so easily when problems come up and working on those problems. So if you are in harmony with the wood element, you're somebody who is easy to adapt, but still takes care of themselves, and not just be a people pleaser, but be adaptable, take care of yourself in that process as well. That should cover some of the basics of the liver. And I'm Sara Burns. If you got any information that was helpful here, then I would ask that you subscribe and hit that like button. I have been working self-employed at Center for Sacred Transformations.org since 2006. And I welcome any questions or concerns that you have about energy healing or the 5 elements. Anyway, so move forward into spring, put your plans into action, and have a beautiful day for now. Take care. Bye-bye.